Most of us are really worried about the state of things. Is there even an area of life, ours or yours, where you are not worried? Politics? Our democracy or the democracies of the world? The economy? Employment, unemployment, misemployment, the climate. How about our Catholic Church? Are you worried about anything happening or not happening in our church? Or young people, or old people, our health, our city? Truth is, we're in a very dark, terrible time. But don't worry. It's going to get more dark and more terrible. There's no way to avoid it all, but we can navigate it. This current moment, our moment, is a global crucifixion. It's not the first time we've been through this, but it seems that it's possible that it's way more fraught at this point in time. In this sense that we humans could do so much more damage than we've ever done before. We are scared. And people of the church and of the state are more than willing to play off our fears against us, against our best interests, even using our fears to their advantage. Because we're so afraid these days. And then with all that fear, it's no wonder that we're not doing very well when it comes to hope. Jesus takes on our fear in this gospel. And the author of Hebrews, in the second reading, the author of Hebrews takes on our hope. Or should I say our hopelessness. In the gospel you just heard that the whole church is hearing today, Jesus begins by warning us to beware of fear. To beware of fear. But not because fear is bad. And for sure, it's about the most unpleasant and pain-filled emotion of them all, fear is. But he's not saying beware of fear because it's bad, but rather quite to the contrary, in this particular gospel with the story that follows it, fear is anything but bad. Our fears warn us that danger could be close by. And in warning us, prepare us for what might be coming. Fear keeps us alert while we walk in the dark. And we're all walking in the dark these days. When I walk in Forest Park at night, and even down Forsyth from the dorms after midnight, as unpleasant as that feeling of fear is, I am grateful. Grateful for my fears because they keep me looking ahead and looking behind and to not be stupid. But these fears can also be paralyzing. And they're everywhere these days, both kinds. I was able this summer to meet up with some of our year-round community over these summer days when more and more of the students were gone. When I say year-round communities, that's sort of code for old people. And in some of these conversations, it was agreed that we as a church and as a nation are on a downward spiral toward imploding. And we're not even at the bottom yet. Democracy is in trouble, and so is the institutional church. Institutions that we have loved very much, and are dying right in front of our eyes. Now, these folks, these older folks I was talking to, they're not pessimistic people. They're just honest. And it's time for us to be that kind of honest. We've got to see what's happening. That the truth is we are in trouble. Dark times indeed. In all those conversations, there was angst across the board. And while not totally imploding yet, we almost all agreed that's going to get way worse before it gets way better. The truth is, things do fall apart. Sometimes they have to. My friends in AA teach me again and again, we'll never recover until we hit the bottom, and if we're not recovering, it's a sign we haven't hit the bottom yet. Sometimes I think we have yet to hit the bottom with these things. People want things to get better. All of us want a better church. All of us want a better government. But we don't want it to be different from what we've always known. Nobody wants it to change because change costs us, always costs us something, change does. And people are uncomfortable and insecure when things are changing. That's just the truth for all of us in one way or another, without exception. Comfort comes from keeping things the same. No wonder things are so uncomfortable these days and so fraught with fear, because things are changing. And that makes us oh so afraid. What will it be like? Fear, yes. As things fall apart, the suffering can be enormous. We are likely to lose so much of what we have loved in our democracy and in our church. So much we hung our hats on for comfort and consolation. Are these folks I met with over the summer exaggerating? Not in the least. Am I ready for the two institutions of church and state that I love and have always expected to be here my whole life to crumble in one way or another, perhaps totally crumble before my very eyes? And as much as I can't sometimes affect that, significantly at least, we can choose how we will respond to this collapse. We can choose. The one thing we can control is how we will respond day by day, even hour by hour, to things falling apart. I heard a little story this past week about Harry Belafonte, who was very good friends with Martin Luther King Jr. They were very, very good friends. And whenever Martin Luther King Jr. was in New York City, he would stay with his friend Harry Belafonte, and they would talk into the night, just two guys. MLK put on the back burner his orator skills, and they just went back and forth in conversation. So just plain Martin And one evening, Morton shared a thought, I guess you could say. And he just, from his heart, he just said to Harry, he said, do you think to integrate, we're trying to break into a burning house? To integrate, we're trying to break into a burning house? And Harry said, what do we do? And Martin Luther King Jr. responded simply, we just have to become firemen. Our hope. It's hard to get to in a time of fear, but it's a gift from God. It's nothing we conjure up or manufacture. Our hope is that the pattern of the universe, the pattern built into the universe, revealed once and for all in the wisdom and the life of Jesus of Nazareth, the pattern of every single life, every single marriage, every single family, every single institution of our society, the pattern built into the universe is what our faith is about ultimately. It's not ultimately about dogma and doctrine as much as those things are valuable. It's not ultimately about agreeing and checking off that big long list. It's about saying yes to the pattern. To the pattern. It's about believing in a pattern built into the universe of order, disorder, reordering. Or in other words, that things break down and break through. And so do people. We break down before we break through. It's the pattern built into everybody's life. And everybody recovering in AA can tell you the truth of that in their own life. But the gospel's trying to tell us that all the time. And it's what happened to Jesus in what we call the Paschal mystery, his living, his dying, and his rising. Breakdown of things and breakthrough. Both and, not either or, ever, one or the other. Even in the darkest moments, there's some light. It's the truth. And our work as believers is to believe in this pattern. When I say when we proclaim the mystery of faith at Mass, we're proclaiming our faith in the pattern of death, resurrection, of breakdown, breakthrough, of order, disorder, reordering of all things. And to say we believe in it is to say we trust it. This is how it's supposed to work. It's how things do indeed get better. And we've got to be able to trust it enough to say yes to it when it's happening in front of our very eyes. To say yes to the pattern. And the best way I know to get to the other side, and I think Jesus was prompting this in this gospel, the best way I know to get to the other side of all this disorder, all this chaos, this insecurity, is to accept our fear, to accept it, not run from it, not make it go away by easy answers and demonizing the other side, but recognize it and welcome it. The best way to get to the other side of all this disorder is accept our fear and let our fears alert us. Pay attention. That's the gift of fear. To help us pay attention and let our fears teach us now to be alert to these pending dangers. And link arms. Link arms with one another. And just keep talking. Keep talking to each other. Silencing no one. And listening to all. Just keep talking and listening so that it can reawaken what has become so dormant in us because of so many stupid, easy answers. And that's our imaginations. Our imaginations have got to be reawakened again for what's not happening but is still possible that we don't even know yet until we start to imagine. We're the only creatures on this planet who can imagine. And we're not imagining what could be and is yet untried. to get to the other side of all this. One time I was lamenting, a couple years back, maybe, I don't know, I was lamenting just how stuck we seem to be in politics, and somebody just said, you know, I wonder why we've settled for this two-party system. I mean, honest to God, Gary Brown is pretty stupid. It really never occurred to me that there's anything more than a two-party system. And it's got us stuck. And so the Friday before last, I went to a class on reimagining politics without a two-party system. And I got to thinking while this dude was talking, and there were several people, but I got to thinking, you know, I don't believe in a binary system anywhere. Why do I believe it in politics? And what could happen to make it more than a two-party system and this contest between two sides all the time? And what could happen if we had successful, viable, more parties in our nation? My imagination was triggered by a conversation, and my conversation triggered me to go to a workshop, and my workshop has just opened worlds to me now. My friends asking good questions, poking at the beast, asking good questions, as it were, of church and of state, your church too, and the state. And then letting our imaginations go wild. Our imaginations go wild. How we manage this darkness, this dark night, is up to us. We can go down with the ship, angry and aggressive and violent, which is what we're doing right now. Or we can go down with compassion. Go down with compassion and with an expanded consciousness that knows and that trusts that going down is just part of coming back up. That going down is just part of coming back up.